For me, this was a major grail pickup. Stay tuned as I reveal that comic as well as some other key comics I've picked up from recent auction wins. Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and in today's episode, we've got a comic book haul video for you. These are auction wins that I picked up recently from an Infinity Comics auction off of hipcomic.com, and I continue going back to the well with this site and picking up great keys as well as some favorites that I wanted to pick up and put back in my collection, some really good condition books. But one of those books is a major grail, at least it is to me. You guys will have to let me know after I do the reveal if you think the same thing. But before I do the reveal today, definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. All right, guys, hold still. We'll be right back with the books.
5 minutes later.
All right, guys, I'm back. I've already got the comics unboxed. No sense in wasting time unboxing that. You don't need to see me do all that. But I just want to remind you that these are comic wins off of an Infinity Comics auction on hipcomic.com. Now, what I normally do is I will do a week's worth of auctions, and I'll pick things up over multiple days, and after that 1 week's over, I will usually end up paying that invoice and getting those comics in. And I've got to say, HipComic and Infinity Comics especially, once you win those comics and you pay your invoice, man, you get those comics back in here super fast, and they do a great job of packaging them up and having them ready for you. And that's what they did with these books right here. It's a little bit of a mix of some books that I had in my past, some books that are keys, and then the one major grail at the very end. Again, I call it a major grail, but it's not that expensive of a book. But if it grades out higher, it definitely jumps up there. I consider it a major grail. You guys, again, you're going to have to let me know what you think after I do the reveal. But let's start with the books that I picked up that were ones that I just had in my childhood that I wanted to replace with better copies. Let's start with Astonishing Tales number 18. Books from my past. My first books that I was getting off the stands outside of Archie, Richie Rich, Little Dot, things like that, Casper, Hot Stuff. Books like this, books from Marvel and DC, some of those first books. 1973 was a big year for me. A lot of my first books, my first experience, my first exposure to some of these Marvel characters came that year. And that was this right here. This was my first Kazar book right here. You've got this wonderful, wonderful John Romita Sr. cover. He was doing most of these covers, and the interiors were by other artists. Like this issue here was Dan Atkins. And not a key, it's just a great, fun story. And what a great cover. I mean, this is a striking cover right there. And it does have value if you could get these things at a higher grade. Now, I bought this from HipComic for a few dollars. I don't even have the price in front of me right here because it wasn't that much. But a book from June of 1973 in a VF condition right here. Really good condition. I think I could actually press this up to probably a 9.4 or 9.6, and that's the grades that I pulled some prices from. 9.6, maybe $190. That was a recent sale over the last year, but I've seen the lowest right now listed on eBay for $241. 9.4, though, this is a book. It goes down to about $80. And that tells me that this is a book that would have to have a pre-screen if you wanted to do something like that. This book is not a key. It's just a key if it is a super high grade. If you can get a 9.8, I didn't even pull a price on a 9.8 because I don't think it would pull that. But 9.6 at a $190, maybe $241, that's not bad. And I will do a pre-screen at that level on that. But this was my first experience to Kazar. And man, I had no idea what the heck was going on. But that was the joy of comics when you're that young. You just jump in and start experiencing these things. And then the joy of going back and finding back issues and other comics and finding references and putting all those pieces together. That's the joy of comic books. So I also had this as a kid. I had the next issue, number 19. Again, This was John Romita Sr. cover. Got Dan Atkins on the inside. 9.6s, man, I tell you, drop off. Again, even less of a key because it's the middle of the storyline. $50 was a recent sale. I've seen one listed right now for a 9.6 at $130. This was a VF Plus, actually. So that stands a better chance of maybe grading out a little bit higher with a cleaning press. Again, these are books I'm not interested in just getting graded and putting in my PC. I'm not going to put more money into these things right now. These are books that I want on my PC. I probably end up reading all these books before I do anything else with them. But I also picked up, before I go on, this is from August of 1973. So you can see that we're talking bi-monthly at this point. These were not monthly books for Astonishing Tales. I had no idea back in the day what the schedules were or anything like that. I just know that on Saturday mornings, I would go with my grandmother and my mom down to the local drugstore, which was the only place I could find comics back in that time. And then we'd go to the grocery store, and I'd always pick up comics every week that I would go down. And somehow I managed to pick up the first 2 issues as well as this here, the 3rd issue. I ended up with all 3 of these back when I was a kid. And I think right after that, we get the story of the Living Colossus, I think. But this Khazar storyline wraps up in this one right here. Again, another John Romita Sr. cover. This time you've got Werner Roth and Marie Severin doing artwork on the inside. This is actually October of 1973. So by this point, it wasn't even bi-monthly. It was when they put it out almost. Now, this is, again, another VF Plus copy. Recent sale over the last year, only $77 for a 9.6. Somebody else right now has got one listed. The highest grade I've seen listed on eBay right now is for 9.6, and they've got it listed for $241 as well. So again, I don't know if people are actually buying it for a 9.6. If you could pull a 9.8 on that, these books would fly at 9.8s, no problem, because of how old they are, but not because of the storyline or anything like that. So again, these are candidates for possible pre-screens, but I've got so many other books that are actual real keys that deserve to go into CGC before these would even sniff the light of day. That didn't even make sense. Before these would go into CGC. But these were fun pickups from my childhood, and one of the best things I love about this hobby is going back and buying the books that meant something to me, or I remember from my beginning days of comic reading and then comic collecting. So that's what these are right there. But from there, we go on to actually getting some keys during this week of wins from Infinity Comics. And this is a book I've never had, but this looked like it was in really good shape. It is Firestorm number 3. This is from June of 1978. And of course, this is the first appearance of Killer Frost. And I remember the book back in the day, but I was never really a fan of the artwork or anything. And I was not a huge DC guy, even back in those days like that. I always liked Firestorm. I always liked his early appearances in the Justice League because you've got George Perez artwork as well, so I probably had a lot more to do with it. 9.6 on this. Man, I tell you, it was surprising. I looked this up, and I think this is a VF Plus right here, and I think it has an outside chance at a 9.6. And it shocked me that a recent sale over the last year went for only $41. I could not believe that. 9.4 actually went for $37. What's going on in the comic book world, guys? I mean, I know the market's down, but that seems crazy to me to have a key like this go down that much, even at a 9.6. This is a book that, man, I couldn't even send this in at this point. This is a book I'll probably work on and just hold on to for a while and really give me a chance to look at and make sure it's worthy of trying to get at least a 9.6. I'm not getting this graded anytime soon as well, but those prices actually shocked me. Now, I did pick up this key. This is a book I've never had before, and I've heard about it for years, and I found this at a really good price. Infinity Comics had a Fine Plus grade on this, but the photos look pretty good. I think you're going to end up having some foxing on that and some staining, not staining, but foxing and some yellowing of the pages. But this is Submariner number 50. This is the first appearance of, I'm going to mispronounce this, Namorita. I think that's how I always called her name Marita, but that's how I did that as a kid. Got a Bill Everett story as well as the artwork on the interiors. You've got Gil Kane artwork on the front here. That's a really funny Lobsterman cover right there. But great key issue. I didn't pay much for this at all. I'm not getting into the prices mostly because, to be honest with you, I've had some of these auction wins sitting over here for a little while now and before I got a chance to film this. So I don't have the prices on me. But I know I didn't spend a lot on this. But this is a book, even at a Fine Plus, and I think it actually could grade out better than a Fine Plus, which is around a 7.75-ish range, maybe even a 6.5. I think I could get this thing up to an 8.5 at the very least. That's an $95 is a recent sale on that. I'd got to get it to a 9.0 though, before I start seeing some better money, some 3-digit dollar signs. $174, 9.0 was a recent sale. 9.2, 250, 9.4, 300. So even those, at this point, to me, those prices seem like they are really down these days. And it kind of questions what you want to do out there when you're buying these things. I love buying raws, so I can work on them in the shop and try to get some of that potential out of them. But the way things are going right now is that the raws are kind of going up in price. The slabs are kind of coming down in price, and that margin in the middle there is getting a lot smaller, and you're almost better just buying a graded version of something. Now, granted, like for that Firestorm, for example, buying a 9.6 would be much better than just buying a book like that raw that I just had for $10 or $15. I mean, you might as well just buy that 9.6, and you could even take a chance and see if you could get a 9.8 possibly out of that. But it's kind of crazy. I think these are pretty good prices. This is going to be the first book so far that definitely will get fast-tracked in my press a lot sooner than some of the other ones here. This one's got some potential. When you get that $3-digit dollar sign potential on that, that starts to pique my interest. And I always like to challenge myself when I clean and press to see if I can get these books, a book like this that Infinity Comics graded as a Fine Plus, if I can get that book up significantly. But once I get it into the shop, we'll take a real close inspection to see what I really think it's going to grade out to be. All right, got 2 books left, and I'm dropping things, so sorry about that. This is a key, but it has also come down in value a lot, and the popularity of the character has suffered greatly since the creator left the book, because they're not really using her quite to the extent. Maybe it'll take somebody else some time to really pick up this character or pick up the ball and run with it. But I'm talking about the Punchline, and this is Batman number 89. And of course, I'm talking about James Tynion, who created Punchline. This is her first cameo appearance. It's not the key first appearance from Villains. What was the title? Oh my God, Hell Arisen. I was going Villains United. That wasn't it. It was Hell Arisen, number 3, I believe. But this is still a pretty good comic. 9.8 still go for around $100. And I'd have to pre-screen this book right here. And I picked it up for a few dollars. I mean, this book, even the raw, has dropped significantly. Didn't pay a lot for this at all. And I took a chance on this. I love Punchline as a character. My daughter was so into Harley Quinn that when they introduced Punchline as kind of a Harley Quinn foil, I kind of gravitated towards that. That's what kind of got me back into DC by James Tynion, along with the character, the Batman Who Laughs. Those 2 characters got me back into DC Comics and got me back into Batman. And I really enjoyed that James Tynion run on those comics at that point. But again, a book that has really dropped in value over the last couple years, but again, like everything else. All right, guys, I'm going to take the books down because we're down to it. The last book I picked up this week from Infinity Comics, this is The Grail. And again, you guys have got to let me know what you think of this. I think it's a Grail. It's not the biggest Grail. There's one before this that's a much bigger Grail. But for me, this has double significance. And that's kind of what makes it a Grail, not to mention how old it is. Let me just show it to you. It is 4-Color Comics number 189. This right here, guys, is the second appearance of Scrooge McDuck, which that's part of the key to this right here. So it makes it much more affordable than the first appearance. But got a 1948 book. There's the age. You got the condition, which is a VG to fine grade right here. But for me, the big significance to this right here that adds to the total package of it being a Grail, even maybe a smaller Grail, is that it is the first Carl Barks cover. And I don't see this getting talked about. I have to look, you had to look this up. If you go onto Key Collector, it tells you these things. But if you go to Go Collect, it doesn't say either of those things. Or if you go to Comic Book Price Guide, it doesn't say that either. It doesn't even say second appearance of Scrooge McDuck on Comic Book Price Guide. I'm shocked that those things are not listed here. Now, one thing I was thinking about this just as I'm speaking is I'm going to have to look up a CGC version of this that's already graded and to see if CGC puts it on the notes on the slab that of both of those things. First Carl Barks cover, second Scrooge McDuck appearance. Because if they don't, when I submit this to CGC, I will definitely have to put a note on this because I think those things need to be on the slab. I think that makes this a major Grail. Not the most major Grail, but come on, this is an awesome book right here. It would have been probably more awesome if Scrooge McDuck was actually on the cover. That comes much later. But what a great story. I remember reading the story. It's the Old Castle Secret. I remember reading it in reprints. So we'll see how this book does when I get it cleaned and pressed. Let me give you some figures on this. I went and did some research, and we did a range of 6.0 or a 4.0 up to a 6.0. So let me give you some prices. And again, this kind of shows you 4.0 on this recent sale was $206. And when I say recent, it doesn't sell that often. So some of these prices may end up going back more than a year, even 2 years, because they don't even have it in that grade. And there wasn't any sale. So it doesn't sell a lot. But this is a really spectacular looking copy right here. 4.0, $206, 4.5, $175. 5.0 gets it over to 200 mark at $216. 5.5, no sales recently, but a 6.0 major jump up to $492. And that's just a snapshot of the recent sales on this. And again, those sales are not even during this year. All of those sales have happened in 2022 and 2023. Hard to tell what this is. The problem is this right here for me, as much as I would love to get this book graded and to sell and to help pay for the hobby, part of the hobby is actually wanting to keep books like this in your PC. And this is a book that I fell in love with the first time I ever got to see it. And that was a year ago at the National Sports Collectors Convention. The dealer, who was a comic book dealer out of Michigan, had a copy of this for, I think it was around $50 or $60. It was a lot worse condition than this right here. And I even reached out to him months later on Instagram. He still had the book, only because I kind of got that fever that I wanted this book. Once I figured out what this book was, I wanted it. And that was the only one I was finding available that seemed reasonable. I've seen other ones that were much worse condition for a lot more money. And I even saw this copy in an antique store not that long ago, and they had over a roll that was in much worse shape than this for a $400, it was close to $500 price tag on it. It shocked me when I saw it. And I even made a comment at the time when I was rummaging through that antique shop, and it was mostly comics and toys. And I saw that and I'm going, oh my God, I love that book. How much is it? And I saw that price tag and I'm just thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me. That right there was outrageous. But this popped up during this particular week on the hipcomic.com Infinity Comics auction. And it was one of the key comics for that particular week. And if you go on there, you'll notice that they do have 4 or 5 or 6 books that get highlighted when you go to the Infinity Auctions pages. And this is one of those featured ones. And I kept an eye on it. And I'm not comfortable necessarily giving price tags on this kind of stuff right here. But I will say is that I need to get this thing graded at little bit more than a 4.0. That's why I gave you that grade. I needed to get over a 4.0 to basically break even at this point. But I'm not worried about that as much as I just want to get this graded at some point. I think it's going to grade out better than a 4.0. I could be wrong. I'm not the biggest expert when you get down into those lower mid-level grades like that. I don't know if I could tell you the difference between a 4.0 and a 4.5. I know what a 6.0 should be like. I've had some 6.0s that I can compare this to, but my guess is this is somewhere probably in that 5 to 6 range. I'm hoping it would be 6 because this is a really nice cover. I mean, it's got some small creases. It's got some spine splitting, color breaking spine ticks right there. But overall, this cover, the color is fantastic. So we'll do a clean and press. We'll get it into CGC at some point, and we'll see what we get. But this is a book that is definitely staying in my PC. I just hope that I can add good value to it and have something of value really good in my collection, because this is a book I want to hold on to. So, guys, that's it. Let me know in the comment section what you think of the books I picked up today, and especially this one. Guys, do you consider this a Grail book, or maybe it's just a minor Grail? Let me know. Like I said, leave me a comment in the comment section. But that's it for today. Guys, if there's ever anything that you see on my channel that you're interested in, definitely reach out to me at collectorauctions@yahoo.com or DM me on my Instagram account. Or you can check out what I currently have for sale in my eBay store or on my Shortbox page by clicking the links in the description down below. So that's it, guys. I had a great time today. I love these books, especially this one right here. I'm in love with this book, guys. So you can let me know what you think of it. So anyway, I'm out of here. You have a great rest of the day. And remember, every comic has a story.